card that has the ornaments and the ribbons, ribbon hanging, and I did just one kind of as a practice here to see what kind of colors I wanted. I wanted to maybe change up the colors in my ornaments a little bit here. You can see I did some of the details over the top like this, and I did some different colors in the ornaments, and I have all this glitter on the top that's really fun, and the pine needles sticking out, and these little branches. So that's something I didn't sketch in there, but we'll be adding in after we paint the ornaments and the bow. All right, so we're going to start out by doing the ornaments. I'm going to unfold my card just to make it a little easier. And if you're worried about getting paint on this, you could always just set another sheet of paper over top of it while you do that. I just got a scrap piece of cardstock, and I can just kind of set that over top to make sure I don't get any paint on the back side of my card if you're wanting to do that. All right, so we're going to start out with our round size 4. And just pick any ornament you want to work on. I think I'll just start out with this small one right here. And I've got all new water here since I got a little of that mica in one of mine. And I'm going to fill that in with some clear water. And this one is kind of tucked behind another one, so it's not completely circle. Let's go red for this one. I'm just going to let that paint just kind of flow across there. And if you have too much water, you can always just lift it up and wipe it on your paper towel here. Just going to try to even that circle out. Like, got a little crooked there. I want to just lift some of that red out of there again. Give myself that reflective area. Now, to avoid bleeding into some of the other ornaments, instead of moving on to this one next to it, I'm just going to jump around so then I don't have to wait for things to dry in between. I can just kind of move around and plant the different ones in different spots. So how about we do this one over here, and I'll do the same. I'll do another solid. Kind of drew out the ones that I had stripes on. Again, this one's kind of tucked behind, so I don't have it completely round on that side. And how about we do that peacock blue? That'll be really pretty. I'm just going to let that kind of flow across the water and just kind of push it to move that pigment around. I'll rinse my brush before it's completely filled in. Just kind of dab off some of the excess water so you don't get too much water added in there. And then I can just kind of push that around, and then I can leave that kind of C-shaped area of white on my reflective area. Okay, so now maybe I will jump down to this kind of one right here, or well, maybe this one. We'll do this one because then I can go to this one next. I'm just going to try and do some of these solid ones first. Maybe this one. We'll go with that lighter green, the julep. Going to push the pigment around. I didn't need to paint the whole thing in, and here I got a little bit too much water. I can see it's already ponding up, so I'm going to dry my brush off on my paper towel, and then I'm going to lift some of that pigment off and just dry it off on my paper towel, and then I can lift that up to get that reflection on my ornament. And if you want to go back over with another layer or add more paint in there, you can always just do another layer just to get it a little darker. Alright, so this one is not touching any of the other ones, so I don't worry about that one bleeding in. So I think I'll go ahead and do this one. And I think I'm going to color this one in yellow, and then we can do some details over the top. So I'm just going to do a wash over the entire thing. And then instead of, like in my first attempt, I did kind of a blue with a stripe. I actually, instead of making a solid stripe, make maybe kind of like little leaves like this one is a little bit. So I'll do that clean water over the top of this circle, and I'm just going to go right over top of where my lettering is too, because we will go over that with the really dark, the black. All right, get some of that really golden yellow here. And a little bit bigger ornaments, so you can really spread that around. Again, that one's kind of tucked behind the other one. And I'm not too worried about some of my pencil lines showing through here, because like we talked about, we're doing those kind of outline elements to make it more illustrative style, so I can cover that up too if some of your pencil is showing through. All right, and we'll let that layer dry. I think this is dry enough up here that I can do this next ornament up here. So maybe we'll do the pink. Excuse me. I'm gonna do that coral. I'm going to dilute that down quite a bit so that I get a nice light color. Again, I'm just going over the entire ornament. Some fuzz on my brush here. With that water. And I'll go back in with my pink, coral pink. And then leave that C-shaped area white. I'm going to try and fix the roundness of that a little bit. I'm getting more oval shaped. Okay, so that one's really light and pretty. Maybe we can do another red one down here. I'm just going to hit this all with the dryer really quick just to make sure I don't bleed into any of my other ornaments. Alright, I'm going to do a red one here. Again, I'll just take that clear water. Go back with my cherry red. And that's why it's important to make sure that's nice and dry, because I was going right up against where that green one is, and I don't want it to bleed into there. Which is, there's nothing wrong with that if that's what your intention is, but if you don't want it to bleed in there, then we need to make sure that that is dry before we go and do the next one that's next to it. I'm going to dab off that extra water so I can pick up some of this extra water that's ponding up here. That looks really lovely. Alright, so I'm going to do this one next, and I'm going to do that lighter blue turquoise color for this one. Alright, so we've got that. That's actually a cobalt turquoise, so it'll give me a really cool texture too. I'm just going to keep painting the same method of leaving that little white area that's that C shape on. And make sure that you're doing your reflective point on the same side of every ornament, because your light would be coming from the same direction. and have them all over the place in different parts. You want to try to get them in the same area. And we got this one down here. I think I'll make another pink ornament down here. And this might not be dry yet, so I'm going to dry this. Going to lift a little bit of that up so that I can get that reflected point a little bit better. All right, so now that's just my first layer of all of my ornaments. Now we can add some little stripe details over some of them. And so this one, maybe we'll do in some green. I'm going to move over to my round size 1. And I'm going to get that darker green that I mixed up kind of with this juniper color with a little bit of the peacock blue. It gives me a really nice dark green. And I'm going to make a curved line that goes across this. And I'm doing that curved line like we talked about in the lesson so that we can give that look of roundness. I'm going to make some kind of little leaf design across this. And I think will be fun when this dries to add a bit of the shimmer paint on top of this to make it look like those are actually glitter flakes on the ornament. And if you don't feel super confident about doing this with a small brush like this, you can always use some markers or brush pens to draw those details on as well. So that's an alternative as well. So if you have a set of these brush pens like this or alcohol markers, that would be something you could sketch over the top as well and do kind of a mixed media project. Let's see, did I originally have stripes on that other one? We have a stripe on this one as well. So I'm actually just going to go over top of this with the same red and just do a darker red stripe over top of it. Kind of lost my sketch a little bit, so can't really see it through that red. Like I said, we'll add some more details over top of that with black and glitter, so give that more of an illustration. And let's do some stripes on this one. We'll do, this is the turquoise, so I'm just going to do the darker turquoise color over top of it, the peacock blue. And I'm going to use my round size 4 to just do some basic stripes. And if you can't see your stripes any longer that are sketched on there, just kind of go back to your reference photo. And as you can see here, I'm not going over that reflective area as much because I want to kind of just blend that in because this is such a dark color. I know it's not going to lift very easily. So I want to try to do as light as possible in that area. so that it's easier to lift the paint when I go back over it on my reflective point. And I'm just trying to follow the same curve on both stripes. I'm just kind of avoiding that reflective area for just a minute. Alright, so I'm going to rinse my brush and I'm going to use this clear water to just blend this across so that I get it nice and light right there. There. Then I still have my reflective area. Okay, and we can do some more stripes on this one. I'm going to switch back over to the round one and I'm going to do these in the red. Just do some thin little stripes across this one. Okay. So that is enough for the ornaments for right now. We'll go back over with some of our illustrated details after we finish the other parts. So we can move on to the ribbon now. So if you were following along with all of the lessons, we want to show the underside of the ribbon is going to be darker. And this particular sketch, I only have one little part of the underside showing, which is under this loop, and the rest of it will be the top side. So the only area that we'll really be focusing our shadowing or the second layer on will be this small section right here above that pink. So I'm going to go ahead and do a red ribbon on this. I'm going to get some of that cherry all loaded up on my palette here. And I'm going to go ahead and just do a wash over the entire ribbon. And then we also have a double layered ribbon here too, so I can do a darker shade on that back part as well as the underside. We'll also add in some crease details just to show the bow. Oh, and I touched my red a little bit, but that's okay because I'm also doing red over top. Okay, so now I've got that pretty well filled in. Oops, I missed a little area here. Okay, go ahead and we'll just fill that red in. And if you have trouble seeing the lines, go ahead and just do that underside part first, and then come back over it after it's dry with another layer. And you can make the center of your ribbon just a bit darker too if you want. You may have to re-wet some of these areas here. I'm noticing this is already dry. You can see it's not flowing here, so I just want to make sure I get that in there without getting too much of a streaky look. That's why we wet that down first so that the paint will spread. You'll get a nice even wash across there. I'm going to go ahead and dry this layer so that I can do my details over the top. Alright, so we'll add another layer of the cherry red on that underside of the ribbon. nice crisp line on there so that I can show that dimensionality of the ribbon. So I'm not doing this wet and wet this time. I'm going to go over my center of my ribbon. And then I'll go over the back side here where that second layer comes out. And we can also add just kind of some little lines right here where the ribbon would be cinched up coming out of the middle. Just do another little quick layer over there. I think that needed a little bit more. That is a little pale compared to the rest there. Alright, that looks pretty nice. So I know it looks a little unfinished right now because we still need to add in some of our details that we practiced, like adding the outlining parts for our illustration and our glitter. So the next section we're going to work on now is doing all those little greenery bits. And I'm actually going to break this up into a couple parts here, so go ahead and watch the next video so that you can get that part. Alright, so we're going to move on to the next steps, which will be adding in our greenery, and then we will do the glitter and outline elements and our lettering. Alright, so like we talked about in the first lessons where I was showing you how to do the different leaf elements, we're going to use our dagger brush, and I'm going to actually gather my paint up with my round 4 so that I don't damage my brush. I want to mix together some of that darker green, the juniper, and a little bit of that peacock blue in there to give me a nice dark pine green color. And you can kind of mix that up too if you want to use some of our lighter green that we kind of mixed up in the practice. Add a little bit more yellow to it. You could do that as well. Just kind of vary it up in different shades of green. Alright, so I have all that on my palette and I'm just going to get my brush loaded. And we're going to add pine needles coming out all over the place around here. So anywhere there's just a little nook, like here in the little crook of the bow, I could add some pine needles coming out. Put some out here. You can overlap the ribbon if you want. This is a dark enough green that it should show over the top. But generally I'm just going to have everything just kind of tucked out and coming out from different places. And here I've got a little gap so I could fill in some little pine needles coming here as well. And they could go over the edge of the ornament a tiny bit. Have some more coming out this way. And since we have such a stark white background, it's nice to fill in all this greenery to really brighten it up. And you could have the pine needles coming in different directions too. They don't all need to be flowing upward or out the same direction. You can kind of vary it up a little bit just to give it a little more interest. You can see I'm just following the same technique for each pine branch, trying to make a center line as my reference point, and then I am going out from the center there. So I'm going to get a little bit more of this green here. Maybe do even a little darker. Like I said, I'm mixing with my round 4 because I don't want to damage my brush by smashing it into the paint pans or mixing up too much. So I'm just using my 4 to mix, and then I'll switch back over to my dagger for painting. And don't worry too much about going over where your lettering is too, because we're going to be going over that with black, so that will cover up any green. Just try not to cover it too much so that you don't lose your letters for reference for tracing. That's getting a little too much turquoise. I'm going to add some more green back into my mix. And here's where it might be helpful to actually turn your paper. So I'm going to pull that out from under my paper that was protecting it, and I'm just going to turn my paper here to make it a little easier so I don't have to try to crane my hand around. In addition to those pine boughs, I don't know how you want to say that, I want to add in some of those kind of leaf elements we practiced. Maybe I'll get some of this julep and a little bit of the goldenrod. And mix it more of a yellowy green color. The greens are just kind of all blending together on here. It's kind of fun. All right, so and just kind of anywhere else that you want to add in some more green to fill that in, you can just add some more of your little leaf elements. Just kind of really fill that in, and you can mix it up. You can go back and forth between your two greens too and just give yourself some variation. And if you run out here, see, I kind of just I made a little bit of a green mark there. I didn't go over my ribbon because I want that leaf to be kind of tucked behind. And every so often while you're making this, just take a moment to just step back and look at it and really think about where you want to place your leaves. You don't want to get too crowded or have too much jumbled in there, because then you'll start to kind of lose your design. I'm just going to kind of fill in a little bit of green in there, just close up that white space. I feel like I've got too much white in this corner, so I'm going to have another little bit come up here, and I'll maybe add some pine needles as well. There, looks pretty nice. All right, I'm going to go ahead and dry this, and then we can go do our lettering and our little details over the top. so that's dry, and I'm gonna go ahead and do my kind of illustrations over the top of this. I'm gonna mix up a bunch more of this black by doing the cherry, and my peacock blue. Some more water in there. I'm gonna need a little bit more of the red. There we go. Get a nice, really, really deep purple black color. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and do my lettering, and I can still very faintly see, I'm not sure you can tell too much, but I can faintly see my lettering here. I'm going to go over the top with my round size 1. And if you want to do that with a black brush pen instead of the watercolor, you can do that as well. Or a different color if you choose. You could even just go over that with a metallic. Alright, so there is that, and now I'm going to do my really quick kind of little illustrative strokes around everything to just kind of highlight it and give it details. So we're not going to go completely around it, we're just going to add some quick little strokes just to highlight those. Just do a couple maybe around the stripes as well, but a lot of that we'll go back over with the glitter too, with the mica. Keep picking up little bits of fuzz here by accident. Around my ribbon. And this really adds that just extra little detail that really makes it feel like an old vintage card, in my opinion. So you have really strong designs like this and just these bright colors. Just fun to do this. I'll just double check here, make sure I didn't miss any that I really wanted to highlight. Okay, so now I'm going to dry this so that I don't mix my shimmer in with my black, and then I can go over and do my little glittery spots. Right, so I'll get some clean water so I don't get that all gunked up with other colors. Alright, so I got that mica shimmer paint, and I'm going to go basically over the same spots I did with my black in the same method, and we're just going to add some little glittery spots. And the reason I like to do that black over, I feel like this shows up so much more if you go over your black lines as opposed to just going over this without the black under it. I feel like it just pops a little bit more. All right, I'm trying to remember to use, here, I'm going to actually, while I'm doing that, move my shimmer water jar over here so I make sure I use that one instead of my other one. I just feel like you can see here, it's not as noticeable as when I put this over top of the black. That's another reason I like to do that. And this is going to just make it look really, really special. I should have to keep adding water every so often to this. And if you have like a little dropper or something too, that might actually help get that activated. Make sure you get it nice and flowing and not clumping up on your brush. And here I got a little bit of a glob. And if there's any areas you just want to add a little bit more sparkle to, you could go over top of your lettering if you wanted. You could add some more over some of the leaves. I think I like the way that looks right now, and I don't want to add too much more. One other thing we can talk about here is how you notice my card is kind of curling up because I dried it, and the paper will kind of curl up in the direction of your drawing. So to kind of fix that, I'm just going to flip it upside down, and I'll dry it from this side, and it'll make the paper kind of curl back the other way and then straighten it back out. I might have to lay that in a book too. Alright, so there is the first card design project that you can do. I smudged my green paint with my finger, whoops. Alright, I hope you had fun painting along with us, and you can go ahead and check out project number 2. Alright, we'll go ahead and work on card number 2 here. This is the second project in this class, and this is the horizontal card. Now, in the vertical card, I was able to just set my paper like this, and I put a piece of paper over it, but unfortunately, that doesn't give me as much room to paint, and I don't want to drip paint all over as I'm coming this way. So one technique we could actually do is just to leave it folded, and so that it's not popping up the whole time. Where did my tape go? So we'll go ahead and start on this card here, the horizontal card, and the vertical card I did have it open and I just kind of covered it up with a piece of paper while I was working on it, but because it's going to be further down on my desk, it's not as comfortable for me to paint that way, and I want it to be closer. So I'm actually just going to take a piece of masking tape rolled up and just kind of tack my card down while I paint it. So use some masking tape or like washi tape that doesn't have a lot of tack to it so you don't rip your paper. All right, this one has got a little bit more complicated to it because we have a lot of layers with the holly leaves going over top everything. So I want to go ahead and start with those holly leaves, and then we'll do the ornaments next, and then the ribbon. And the last step we'll do is our lettering and all of our little illustration details that we did over the top of our last card. So I'm going to break this up into 2 parts again. We'll do the holly and berries and the ornaments in one step, and then the next video we'll have the next parts, which is the ribbon, the outlines, and the lettering. All right, so we'll go ahead and start with the holly leaves, and I want to mix up, oh, that was my shimmer water. So we'll go ahead and start with the holly leaves here, and I'm going to mix up kind of a yellowy green color. I'm going to use my julep, and I want to put some of that golden yellow with that. Give myself a nice kind of a golden yellowy green. Alright, so I've sketched out the main outlines of these. I don't need to do all of the quick details on that, but we're just going to go ahead and do the holly leaves, and then we'll do the ornaments behind it. So if you want to just kind of follow along, I did the center, and I just did the sketch as a guideline. You don't need to follow it exactly. I know some of them might look a little wonky, so I'm going to fix any or make any slightly different shape. Go ahead at this point. So I'm going to do my vein detail by flipping my brush around and just doing a very light depression into the paper with the handle of my brush. And I'll just go around and do all of my holly leaves in this step. And I'm just trying to be conscious of areas where I know that I have some overlapping elements. So here I had some ribbon And on my sketch, I just kind of went up to that line of where the ribbon is because I want that holly leaf to appear like it's behind that ribbon. And this is just one of the reasons why I like to sketch these out first, and I kind of plan out where I want all of my ornaments and the ribbons. Then I know, because of watercolor being transparent, I know which things are going to be in the foreground of my picture, so that I know where to have my overlaps. And I forgot to mention I'm using my round size 4 for all of this, but if you wanted to use a smaller brush like a 2, that would work too. I'll just go ahead and flip my brush around, make a small indentation, a little bit more water here. I can already tell this sketch one got a little funny looking. Just kind of painting a little bit different shape than what I originally sketched. And here I'm just kind of going around the berries a little bit where I did. And if you have 2 holly leaves that are right up next to each other, I'm not worried about them kind of blending in together at this stage because we are going to be going over with our illustration lines to really define them. So if you have 2 that are right next to each other and they kind of look like one giant weird looking leaf, don't worry about that at this point, because this is just our first layer. Alright, there are all of my holly leaves. I'm going to go ahead and just dry this layer so that I can do the berries without that bleeding into the green. You notice there I flipped my paper over at the end of drying just because it was starting to curl up because I had that tape down and the paper was starting to curl up, so I flipped it over to dry more on the other side so that it would curl back down. Alright, I am going to continue using my round size 4 and I'm going to get some of that cherry red for my berries. I'll just kind of make some small little circles, and we can leave a little bit of a white area for a little reflective point. And just kind of try to remember to always make that reflective area on the same side of each berry because your light will be coming from the same direction. And if I get a little bit of overlap here, that's okay. I'm going to be going back over everything with my little outlines to really illustrate them and define them. So I'm just kind of varying up the size of my berries as well. So make some that are a bit smaller, bigger. All right. I'm going to go ahead and dry that so that we can do the ornaments next. All right, the next step we'll be doing the ornaments. I've got 3 ornaments in here that are tucked in. So this one is kind of behind all these holly leaves. I chose to leave that one solid, and I've got 2 kind of striped ornaments. And just like we did in the practice, we're going to fill it in with clean water, and then we will dip our color in. And this point I need to be a little careful going around my elements here. I know that we're going to go over it with some illustration lines to kind of hide any mistakes later, but just do your best to avoid your holly and berries so that we don't have funny layers. All right, so this ornament, I think I want to do that pink color. So I'm going to do the coral that I have here. I'm going to drop that color in, and I'm going to do my kind of my light reflection point more up here because I chose my light reflection point on my berries to be that upper left. So in the other card we did this way. This time I want to do it over here. So I want to avoid putting pink in that area. Just to leave that more white. Just wiping off my brush and lifting the paint off and then wiping it on my paper towel. There we go. And maybe I'll do a really light blue one here. I get clean water again. And carefully going around my holly. And this one, since it's kind of tucked behind this other ornament, I don't think I'd really have a reflection point in this one, so I can just fill this one in pretty solid, actually. We'll do that turquoise color. And just make it be a little bit lighter over here. I'm going to add just a little bit here because I feel like that looks like it's getting more oval and I want it to stay nice and round. There, just make a little bit of it come out from here. Just make that a little more round looking. All right, so this one, I'm going to dry this really quick because I don't want that to bleed into my turquoise ornament. And this one, I think I'm going to do yellow with maybe more of like a red design on it. We'll see. All right, so I'm going to get the clean water here and fill that in. Maybe I'll just do the top section and that lower section, and then I'll leave that middle white for right now. Get some of my goldenrod, that golden yellow here. And I gotta remember my reflection point will be over here. I need to get a bit more water there. It's not spreading as nicely as I would like. do another lift here because it didn't spread like I wanted it to. Alright, I'm gonna, oops, dripped a little bit. Dry that off with my paper towel. I'm gonna dry that. And for that color, maybe I will do, let's see, let's do the coral pink for my stripe, just to kind of keep a 3-color ornament scheme going on here. And then we'll be doing the ribbon in the bright red. Alright, so I kind of lost my reflection on there. I'm going to go back over, get a clean brush, wipe off as much of the excess water as I can. Not too much. And I don't want to rub too hard because I don't want to damage my paper also. Just going to try and lift some of that off. There we go, that's going better. That yellow is a very staining yellow. Alright, I am going to pause this and we'll move on to the next part in the next video, which will be part 2 of this, and we'll do the ribbons and the little illustration details and the brush lettering.